Okay, so here's something a little lighter. It's a vlog about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls movie. I went to see it last night. I had a break from the usual. It contains plot spoilers, ciphers, and it is primarily a response to anti-religionists' review of the movie. And this is long. This is a long analysis. It's two parts. It's probably 16 minutes. So beware. If you haven't seen the movie, I would recommend you see it before you watch this review. If you're interested in something that is not mindless entertainment, I was really impressed. I think it was a incredibly ambitious project, and for that, for the scope of the project, for the amount of information and what they tried to put into the movie in the way of references, it's almost like a game, and not just like a video game. It's almost like an archaeological history lesson. I think it references a lot of the things that are going on right now in our world. It's kind of contemporary, and some of that stuff is really buried, carefully woven into the plot and into the fabric of the movie. It's kind of laid between the lines very carefully, and that's the thing that I was so impressed with about it. There's a lot of flaws. There's a lot of big flaws. Robert mentions the theme. I don't know if John Williams did the music or not, but the music definitely was not up to par with the previous movies. And there was a challenge. There was this incredible challenge that anybody that was trying to make music for that movie would have faced, in that there's way more than one thing going on depending on from which perspective you're watching the movie. If you're watching it strictly from entertainment, it's not going to be on the same par with the other movies for sure. But there's this theme in the movie. Immediately when they talked about going after the Crystal Skull at the beginning of the movie, I knew that it was about knowledge and intelligence.
And the movie itself is non-linear and hyperdimensional.
And that it was going to be this, sort of cipher that ran through the movie that had to do with all of the ins and outs of what really happens. And Robert criticizes Cate Blanchett's character for having psychic abilities, and there is a very interesting thing that's going on there. And he says, well, they didn't really explore that. They didn't really flesh that out in any way. I think they did. I think they did flesh it out, and I think that it was done in a subtle and kind of almost tongue-in-cheek in humor. A lot of jokes that are just buried in the way that the movie is presented, it seems. And I'm not sure how much of this is intentional. I don't know how much I'm going to be reading into it. But the scene where she has Indiana Jones in the chair and he's having to stare at the skull, and she is timing how long he has to look at the skull. There's some really interesting things there, and the history the history of the Cold War is still secret. There's a lot of stuff that's still very hush about what was happening during the Cold War. And if you kind of look at the movie almost tries to present the answers to those riddles, in a sense. And so the movie itself is a riddle, and it tells you that it's a riddle when it talks about the riddles, and it also considers itself a treasure. It references itself, and this is one of the things that I think is the mark of a great movie. When the movie can reference itself, when the characters can reference themselves within the movie, I think that's one of the marks of mastery. I was a little bit disappointed that they revealed at the end that the quest for the Crystal Skull was the quest for knowledge. But and so you have to see that all of the pieces of the things that they were looking for are all metaphorical at that point. So you have to look at the story from that perspective, and then you have to see that they put this 50s motif over something that is actually, this is the problem with that Robert criticizes the timing, and if you put the 50s motif is laid over more contemporary issues. There's more contemporary issues that exist, and so the film is playing in two different times, in three different times if you consider there's the fictitious timeline, which is the Indiana Jones timeline, you know, which is his story, and then there's the story of what actually happened with the Cold War, and then there's the story about what's happening right now and how things are now, and all three of those things are woven carefully into the movie, and it does mess up the timing, but it also refers to this fact in the resolution of the space between spaces. When the John Hurt's character was of course the character that I thought was the most interesting character, and the part I think my favorite part of the movie is when the ants are coming, and the John Hurt of course he's always carrying it near his head. He has the crystal skull, and he puts the crystal skull on the ground, and the ants just part around him. It's so funny. It's like a Dali. It's like a Salvador Dali painting, and the ants pour around John Hurt. They stay out of his way, and it's also I found I'll tie William Blake back in here, and William Blake had noticed this kind of nature to reality, that you have this interactive sphere, you know, not just with the will o' the wisps, but with the insects, with our you know, our surroundings, and there's this interactivity that exists on some type of ornithological level. I'm borrowing the on-fiend term. Where there's this interactivity between what is perception and what is, and that is something that Blake refers to in the Auguries of Innocence. He talks about the bat that's seen late at night. That thing that you see in your peripheral vision has to do with your belief about the nature of the world, in a sense. And so there's this ability, or this ability to clear, or you know, this John Hurt's character was like really blank. He's like, and that's a cipher. That's a, you know, this character is you know, this is a reference to the 60s, and the issues that some of the 60s gurus had, and I thought that was very clever, the way that it was all woven together, and it's I think all in all a pretty good movie. I'm going to go through my notes now. And there again, the explosion, the thing where it's the incredibly unbelievable things that happen. These incredibly unbelievable things that happen, and if you try to think about what happened and why it's so unbelievable, it actually relates back to the real thing as a phenomenon in our culture. And so there's not many people are going to get that. Not many people are going to understand that, and that's a tricky one. Just like the psychic thing, and she tries to steal the information from him, you know, in his mind, and it's not in there. I mean, the information's not in there, so you can't say that he was trying to say that the psychic powers don't work necessarily. But there's a history there. There's a legacy there, and there's a very, very different understanding and utilization of those types of explorations between the Russians and the United States.